Porsche fans? In this episode, we're checking out new PDK shift knobs from Euro Impulse, and we're giving away 2 PDK shift knobs. So if you want to learn how you can win one, keep watching. You know, I love Porsche design, otherwise I wouldn't drive this car, but they don't always get it right. For example, I think that the PDK shift knob on the 718s and 991s and some of the Macans, it's just not right. In fact, maybe it's just aging a bit, right? Plus, like this plastic metal stuff, it's kind of tall and it looks sort of like an alien sex toy, honestly. Yeah, I said it. And now every time you look at it, that's what you're gonna think about. But honestly, I think Porsche agrees. Not with the alien sex toy part, but that the design is aging and maybe they needed to improve it. Let me explain. You see, in the same generation as my GT4, the GT4 RS, Porsche changed up the PDK knob. They put in this one. It looks like a stick shift, but this is the new PDK shifter. You got the Alcantara shift knob and the stitching and the rounder top, but on top, it doesn't say reverse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It says PRND. It's just a PDK. They did the same thing in the 992 GT3s. I think it's a great idea because it gives you that nostalgic feeling of a true sports car. When you look into the window of an older Porsche, you expect to see a stick shift. And yes, technology's come a long way. We have this great automatic transmissions now, but the true sports car, the classic sports car, always had a stick shift. And you can upgrade to that GT4 RS shift knob and boot if you want, but I found something better, I think. Euro Impulse is now making these PDK shift knobs for your 718, 991, and your Macans. I originally found these through scrolling through Instagram, and I saw it and I go, that looks kind of cool, but is this like a Temu knob? I don't want any crap in my car. And so I ignored it, and of course the ad came back because, you know, the algorithms work. And so eventually I decided to contact Euro Impulse. I talked to Naj, one of the head R&D guys there, and him and his partner have been doing Euro Impulse for about 8 years, and they're pretty popular with Volkswagen and Audi groups. They make these nice weighted shift knobs for their cars. And now they're making these PDK shift knobs for our cars. So after a little chit chat, I learned about them and their company. It sounded pretty awesome. They are car enthusiasts. And so we decided to send over some shift knobs so I could get a hands-on look at them and share with you here on the channel. When I received the knobs, I knew I had something nice. They were actually kind of heavy. And I know we like to go lightweight in the Porsche world, but you know what? Just stop eating your burgers. This knob felt so good in my hand.
What did you say?
And, you know, for a real stick shift, you want a weighted knob because it just feels better, right? And it doesn't matter so much in the PDK, but it sure is nice to have a solid piece of machinery in your car. Euro Impulse sells these knobs in 2 primary styles. One is the perforated black leather knob, and it has stitching right on the back to seal up the leather. You can get the stitching in black, white, or red, or you can get the matte black aluminum knob. Both of them have a black lower section on them. You'll see some other knobs in the video that have sort of a gray lower. They're not doing that one anymore. That's a previous generation, but now it's always black. Now you can just do that with a decorative collar and use it on your standard PDK base, and this is what it looks like. All Macans have to do it this way. They can't take the other option, which I think is the best option, and that is the leather shift boot, because that brings it all together and gives it that nostalgic sports car look. The leather shift boot is in black leather and it matches my leather really well in my car, and I had to get the red stitching to match my deviated red stitching in my car. You can also get white or black stitching. They don't currently offer Alcantara or other colors of stitching, but they may here in the future, so keep an eye on it. Lastly, the button on top to move the shift lever, that can be customized with custom engraving. You can go with like one of the standards like these, or you can actually get something custom on there for a few extra bucks. All of this comes together at a similar price or less than upgrading to the GT4 RS shift knob. And honestly, I think it just looks better overall. Plus, it's actually shorter than that one. And you know, all the guys with an actual stick shift want a short shifter. Well, now you get a short shifter PDK. So what shift setup am I going to put in my car? Well, I had to choose that matte black aluminum knob because there's something about my car that just thought it went well, don't you think? But actually, I love the perforated leather one better with red stitching on the back. Oh, it looks great. But you know what? I have the bucket seats, Alcantara seat centers. These don't have any perforated leather in them, so it just didn't work quite right. If I had 14-way, 18-way seats, definitely would have gone that way. Plus, the aluminum matte black knob gets pretty hot in the summer. Thankfully, I don't actually have to use it. I got the paddle shifters, or just put it in drive. What do you say though, we go back to my garage and I give you a nice close-up hands-on view of these knobs, and I'll show you how easy they are to install. Only takes about 10 minutes. Let's go. All right, folks, real quick, I want to show you these knobs in closer detail, and then I'm going to get on with the install. But of course, before that, I'm going to tell you how you can win one of these knobs, which I know you're looking forward to. First, we've got the black leather knob with the perforated leather. Looks really great. This is the one with a collar, and it's designed to go on cars without a leather boot, essentially. But this metal clamp here is how it clamps onto your PDK shifter. And you're gonna have this over it, and it's gonna look really nice. This is the one that I intend on installing on my car. This is the matte black knob. You'll see that on these with the boot, there's a different type of clamp underneath. All the leather is glued onto this plastic frame, which mounts into your car's console. It feels really good in my hand. It's got a solid bit of weight to it. These are just so nice. Here's what it would look like with the black leather boot and the black stitching. Remember, they also offer white stitching, which is pretty common. It's kind of the base stitching, say, in the GT4. But you can't do a leather boot with the 997.2 or some of the Macans, so just keep that in mind. But the rest of the cars, it's good for. Lastly, there's this plastic piece. This trim piece goes right in front of the leather shift boot because your original PDK plastics and such incorporate that hazard and lock-unlock switch. So because that's all changing, you need this plastic piece, and the switch is going to install in there. The plastic on this switch is probably not exactly the same as OEM. You'd have to look pretty close to see the difference. Your passengers definitely won't notice. I suppose you could get the one that Porsche makes. It's probably the same form factor and such, but then you're spending more money. And I don't think it's worth it because this looks good enough for sure. All right, so what about the giveaway, folks? Well, we are giving away these two knobs. Both of them are the perforated black leather with black stitching on the back. And then one of them is the new black base, and the other is the previous gen gray base. Since we're picking two winners, it's the first person that gets back to me is gonna get to choose if they want a leather boot option or they want the no leather boot option. So it pays to get back to me quick. The leather boot is going to be the black leather boot with black stitching. So you get the all black setup here, and depending on which you choose, the black base or the gray base. So to win, here's what you need to do. Of course, if you have Instagram, follow Euro Impulse and Jet Fuel Only on Instagram. Otherwise, for this video, you gotta hit the like button because 100 likes is when I'm gonna do the drawing. Second, you gotta be a subscriber. And finally, your final entry is comment below. Guess what I get to make you say? I have knob envy. Write that in the comments. If you're willing to write that in the comments, you will be entered in to win along with a subscription and hitting the like button. And when you're subscribed, you're probably gonna get notification of the video where I make that announcement. Remember, the first person to get back to me gets to choose whether they get a leather boot or not. All right, that's it. Let's go install this and this one in the GT4. I'll show you how it's done with and without a leather boot. You're gonna see it's really easy. Let's get started. All right, first let's get started by installing a knob without a boot. It's the easiest. All you need is one tool, a 3mm or 1/8 inch hex. I say that because the knobs I got without a boot had the 1/8 inch hex and the other one's a 3mm. So just double check, make sure you got the right one. You don't want to strip those screws out. Turn your car to accessory mode, turn off your headlights so we're not using up some battery, and set your parking brake. We're gonna move the shift lever into the drive position so it's easier to access. The stock PDK knob has this little collar down below. You might not even notice it. You just need to turn it about 45 degrees counterclockwise. Once you do that, the whole knob just slides right up. It's that easy. Now we'll install the Euro Impulse knob.
The lower collar needs to be removed, and you need to install it and set it down in the stock PDK area, right down into that hole. If for any reason the clamp isn't as tight as it should be, you can widen it out, stick a hex key in there or a screwdriver, and tighten it up. However, when it's shipped to you, it should be good to go. Put the shifter on the shaft and don't push it down too far. You see it kind of bounces. You just want it resting naturally on there so the button will still work. Make sure the knob is lined up properly and then tighten down those 2 hex screws with your 1/8 key. It may be a 3mm though. And make sure they're nice and snug. You don't want the knob twisting around. However, don't strip out those hex heads. Then just take the collar, move it up, and tighten it onto the bottom of the knob. Make sure it operates properly, and that's it. It looks so much better than that stock PDK knob.
Now that's all you have to do to install without a boot, but if you want to do the boot, there's a couple more steps involved and you need a couple extra tools. Number one, I do recommend some masking tape. You'll see why in just a moment. You want to protect your trim. Number two, you need some sort of trim tool. I really like this metal one. It's called the Skin tool. I like how it's nice and thin, and also it doesn't flex much. But if you don't have that, you might be able to get away with the plastic one. However, it's not quite thin enough, I think, to get this job done.
So start by laying down some tape between the trim and the PDK base. I'm going to put it around all 3 sides here, but you really only need it probably on one side. Take your trim tool and pry gently between the PDK base and your trim to slightly lift up the base. You can do it on this side or the other side as long as you get it high enough so you can get your fingers under there and lift up the base. But before you pull it too far, be careful. You'll see the hazard and lock switch are still connected by a connector. So it doesn't come up very far. You got to reach your fingers down in there and separate the base from that wire connector. Now the base comes free and we need to swap out the switches. On the back side, you're going to see that there are 2 little tabs on each side. If you press them inward towards the center, those are going to help release that switch out the top. And gently pry on those with a flathead screwdriver or even that 3mm hex key while you're gently pressing on the switch panel. That should pop it out. Next, we need to install it in the new trim piece from Euro Impulse. Position it in through the top and then just snap it in place. First, connect the switches to that connector down there. It may have fallen down in there. Just reach down and grab it, and again, it's a tight fit for fat fingers. You'll know the connector's fully seated when the hazard lights work. You'll see 2 metal clip holes on each side. The switch bezel just clips right into those. Now onto the shifter. Notice the collar, make sure it's open wide enough to get it over the shift shaft. And before you tighten it on there, make sure the boot is positioned properly. 2 stitches in the back and 1 in the center up front. Use your hex key to tighten down the collar and make sure it's snug while assuring that your knob stays aligned properly with the car. If it's an awkward angle to get to the screws, you can move the shifter forward and back for a little more room. Remove all your tape, and now we're going to install the boot. Check out these plastic bits here. They used to have little L shapes like this, but I'm going to admit, during all the filming I've done, I end up breaking them. But guess what? It doesn't seem to matter. It holds just fine without them, so don't worry if you do. Fit those plastic pieces under that trim bezel we installed. Make sure the boot is centered. And then at the forward section, you have those white clips. Those are going to snap right into the console there. Now the boot's fully installed. You want to tuck down all that leather and make it look nice. If you ever need to remove this, you don't need to use a trim tool. Just put your thumbs in where I'm putting them there, tuck it up under the leather and lift up. That'll get that bezel out and then you're good to go. But never lift it up from the rear, otherwise you're gonna break those tabs. If everything looks good, check the operation and enjoy your new shifter setup.
All right, that's it for installing the Euro Impulse shift knobs in your Porsche. Listen, if you want to get 15% off on one of these Euro Impulse knobs, just use my coupon code for a limited time. JetFuel15 gets you 15% off at euroimpulse.com. Folks, I really appreciate you watching. Be sure to hit the like button, consider subscribing, and maybe hitting the bell so you'll be notified of future Porsche content. Thanks so much for watching the Jet Fuel Only channel. We'll see you next time.